Welcome to Hope is Here. Glad that you joined us today. We've been having a great conversation this week with Nate Hutchison. He and his wife Whitney planted a church in New Zealand back in 2008. They're getting ready to plant a second church in this upcoming year, and we've been talking about the culture and just all the great things that are going on in New Zealand, but obviously it is a different culture on top of the time zone change. They're 16 to 18 hours. Is that right, Nate?
Yeah, we're 16 hours ahead in New Zealand.
16 hours ahead. So, but if you miss those, I want to encourage you to go back to the podcast that we have of all these live radio programs we do. You can go to our website, hopeishere.today. That's hopeishere.today, and you can catch those 14-minute conversations. A lot of good information there. Also, you may say, gosh, I want to find out more about this church plant thing in New Zealand. There's a website, and it's pretty simple, too. It's simply Church Plant. I think I added an S in yesterday's program. It's not plural. It's just plant, P-L-A-N-T, churchplant.nz. So, obviously, the NZ stands for New Zealand, but check out churchplant.nz to see what Nate and Whitney and their team is doing over in New Zealand. But Nate, I want to find out a little more about the country itself. You shared about population base, about the same as Kentucky, almost 4 million, very multicultural, people coming from all over the world every year, over 75,000 new people coming to the country each year over the past few years. So a lot of just new people, which is great and exciting for a church plant. But what about as far as food and things? What differences are there in food for those of us like me who've never been to New Zealand, and in my stereotyping and everything is like Outback, shrimp on the barbie, and I know that's Australia, but is it similar, that type of thing, or what differences did you have to deal with food?
Oh, food, man. They do some really nice lamb in New Zealand. Obviously, sheep are outnumbering people in New Zealand 10-1. There are 40 million sheep and 4 million people, so everybody can have 10.
40 million sheep?
Yeah, 40 million sheep, man. It's amazing to look across the hillside and see all these little white puffy clouds just grazing. So lamb is a really good New Zealand kind of home cooking kind of thing. But then, just like you mentioned, the multicultural side of things, my culinary eyes have been opened, and my horizons have been expanded, and I love Indian food. Man, they make some like authentic Indian food because people from there move over to New Zealand and set up shops. I love it. And so Indian food and Thai food and just all kinds of things from all over the world is really right there in Auckland. And in any major city in New Zealand, you'll find that kind of thing. So I just love the variety, really.
Well, that's great to know that you do have that type of variety there in New Zealand. Getting back on the spiritual side of things, talk a little bit, what is the thinking there as far as it like postmodern? Talk to us a little bit about that side of the spiritual things in New Zealand.
Yeah, so for a long time now in New Zealand, there's just been this prevailing thought, philosophy of whatever is true for you is fine. That's, there's a lot of tolerance around people believing whatever they want to believe. So in a way, that's good, but in another way, not so good, because once you say, this is the only way, like we do with Jesus, and Jesus said it, like, hey, I'm the way, the truth, the life. There's no other way to the Father except through me. When we start to preach that, or just say that in a conversation, that's when the walls go up, or people just like count you out, and they just think you're intolerant of other religions or other philosophies. So that's a major challenge, is getting to the hard biblical truths that we believe are true of our God who created morality and set the standard, to be able to share that in a loving way and say, hey, truth is truth. God actually said some things that are actually true, and it doesn't matter what you think about it. It doesn't matter what I think about it. There is an absolute truth. That's a really hard thing to get through to people with that postmodern thinking in New Zealand, and that's happening here as well. I mean, in America, I think that New Zealand might be 20 to 30 years ahead of America, or less than that, in that sort of evolution towards postmodernism. But it's still here, and that's something that we need to be really mindful of when we're presenting the gospel, is what people actually perceive when we're talking about it.
Well, one of the things you shared in our first program is that, they're kind of skeptical of outsiders, and obviously you and Whitney coming here from the United States, I'm guessing that you've really had to work on building some long-term relationships to build that trust before you can really engage in a deep faith conversation about Jesus. Is that fair to assume? Or
Yeah, and Greg, this touches again on something we mentioned on the first episode, and that's just the idea of God using you and shaping you as He sends. So what I mean by that is, one time a guy asked me in our life group, he's like, why do you think you need to come over here and plant churches? I mean, we're here, we can plant our own churches. And I thought, man, that's a really good thought, because you could plant new churches as Kiwis, and that happens, okay? But sometimes God sends people just for that person to be shaped and molded. I don't think that there was something special about me or Whitney that God needed in New Zealand. I think it was more, the sending was more about shaping us and sending us away from our comfort zones, and then he used us through that for His glory. But there's another side of that answer to that question, why did you come over to New Zealand, is I said to him, it's like, hey man, if one of the best things that I have to offer that you may not is my time. Like, I'm giving my whole life to planting a new church. And like, everything that I'm doing right now is for this goal. Are you doing that? Like, do you know of any of your friends that are willing to do that, to raise funds to support yourself to do that? Like, if not, then maybe you do need help. And you know what happened? Long story, but like, over the course of 2 years, he did follow, like, he's followed suit. He's quit his job, which was a great job. He got a promotion, and he was ready to climb that ladder even higher at Air New Zealand, but he quit that, and he's in Bible college right now. So I don't know where that's going to lead, but I'm excited that God's stirring his heart and others like him because of hopefully a little bit of what He's been using us to do around him.
And excuse my ignorance, but I'll ask the question, are there Bible colleges available for him to attend in New Zealand? There
are 2 in the city of Auckland that are Bible colleges that we'd say, go for it. This is a great place. There's one called Laidlaw College and another one that is really good. So I went to Laidlaw to get my counseling diploma, so it's a great school.
Well, obviously, Nate, some of the barriers here with faith, with people in the United States is just the busyness and materialism. Is that a challenge there as far as with the church planning and trying to get people to come to faith and grow in that? Is that also an obstacle there?
Oh, yeah, especially in Auckland. It wasn't so much in Christchurch. That's where we planted the first church, City of Christchurch. That was a little more sort of laid back, smaller town, and you did have less busyness. But in Auckland, we've noticed it's just as busy as people here in America. So that's always a challenge. Like, how do you try to get people to incorporate church life into such a busy schedule? Or how do we convince them to try and live differently in order to put Jesus first? Definitely a big challenge as well, yeah.
Well, speaking of the busyness, I know you like sports. You're a good athlete, and is Kentucky basketball, is it as popular there as it is here in the States?
Well, it's funny you ask. Oh, and by the way, not a great athlete, this guy. I think I am, but I'm probably not. I like to play basketball, but Ty Wynyard was on the team.
That's right. I forgot about
basketball team last year from Auckland, the city where we're planting a church. So that did probably pique people's interest in Kentucky basketball, to be honest. Plus, when I first got there, this is a funny story. When I first got to Auckland 10 years ago, I went to church, and lo and behold, guess who walked through the door? A guy named Wayne Turner. Remember Wayne Turner? He was on the
point guard.
95 point guard. Yeah, he was playing basketball for the Tall Blacks. That's the team, New Zealand team. Oh no, the New Zealand Breakers actually. Anyway, he was injured and he was there at church that day. And, another 7-footer from the team came, and they had attended a few times because the chaplain goes to our church and he brought them along. I was like, this is so surreal because I had just watched him win a national championship a few years ago in Kentucky. I moved to New Zealand, and then I meet him face-to-face in my church. I was like, whoa. So there were I think he wasn't the only Kentucky player that ended up in New Zealand on a professional team from time to time.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, they get about Kentucky basketball being international, but you got to see it firsthand. So what other sports are big there?
Oh, rugby is huge. And if anyone subscribes to Amazon Prime and you've got that, like subscription that you can watch stuff, there's this thing called, I don't know what it's called, but it's about the All Blacks on there. We've been watching it with my parents here this week, and that's a really good documentary about the team last year. So rugby, yeah, huge sport in New Zealand, and they like to make fun of American football and say, well, yeah, American football is kind of like rugby where you put little pillows under your shirt and a helmet on and you try to play rugby like that and protect yourself.
In other words, like Saturday Night Live many years ago, a skit, they call us girly men, huh?
Girly men, yes, you girly man. Yeah, there's a bit of that going on. Just friendly rivalry kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, I talked about, I believe, at the end of our program yesterday, but you guys did the first church plant. We only got 2 minutes left, so give me a quick, just little description about what's coming up with the new church plant. And then also, I know people will know, hey, maybe you want to support what you and Whitney are doing, so let people know how they can do that.
Well, hey, we planted a church in 2008, like you said, and that was more of a parachute plant where we just got dropped in and we tried to figure it out on our own. But this time, we're partnering with the Church of 500 in Auckland, New Zealand. They're really excited and behind us, and we're going to plant just 20 minutes away from them. And we're going to have the support of local leadership. We've got elders who are excited to join us from that church, people that live in the community from that church that are going to come over and join us. So we should have a core group of 40 to 50 right off the bat. We've been doing some fundraising here, and we're already to about 70% of what we need. So God is really blessing this next opportunity. And the coolest thing, I think, is the area. I mentioned it earlier, but there is just a growing area of Auckland. 100,000 new people will be coming into this area. It's just like a 6-kilometer radius. They're building 50,000 new homes. There's a new shopping center. And right in the middle of that shopping center, there's a community building that we're praying that God would give us favor with the council to let us use on Sunday mornings to set up a church. And would you guys pray with us for that the Auckland City Council would find favor with our church planting team to let us use that perfect venue? It's just the perfect opportunity. It's got a lot of the things that we need to do church in the best location. So really excited. If you're interested in partnering with us, it's churchplant.nz. You can find out all about that at churchplant.nz in American speak. And we'd love to have you just check it out and consider donating to what we're doing.
All right, well, that's Nate Hutchison, and I hope that you will look into that at churchplant.nz. We wish God's richest blessings on you. Nate and Whitney in New Zealand, I'm Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.
Kevin Bradley is the #1 RE/MAX real estate agent in the state of Kentucky, and he lives right here in Scott County. Having sold over 200 homes in 2017, Kevin would welcome the opportunity to help you buy or sell your home, or answer any real estate questions that you have. Kevin is a proud supporter of Georgetown College men's and women's basketball. Contact Kevin Bradley today at 859-619-9896. That's 859-619-9896 with RE/MAX Creative Realty.